Hi guys, it's Sherry Ward here from Square Tree Publishing, and today what we're going to talk about is creating a niche market for your book. The very first question I ask any of the authors that I work with is, who's your book for? Who's your audience? And almost everybody always says, oh, it's for everybody. Everybody can have this. I'm thinking, you really need to niche out. And a lot of times authors are really scared to do that. They feel like they're losing out, that if they niche down tight, they're just going to lose out on this whole other group over here. And actually what happens is the opposite. So niching down is one of the most important things that you can do. One example that I have at a restaurant, as an example in the local area where I live, is we have a restaurant called the Spaghetti Factory. Now immediately you're like, oh my gosh, do they only sell spaghetti? No, they sell salads and they sell a ton of other stuff. But immediately, because I've said spaghetti, then you know it's an Italian restaurant. So that's the concept that I'm looking for, is we're going to niche down really tight. Does that mean that you exclude everybody else? Maybe at the beginning, but as you keep going, it's going to end up growing back out. But you're going to have to niche out on who your audience is for your book right at the beginning. And if you want to sell to the masses, you want to first start with the one person. Who's the one person that this book is for? If you were to exclude everybody else, who's that one person that you want it for? I'll give you an example. One of my authors was a grieving mom. So what we decided to do is we created a curriculum for her, and as we created the curriculum, we called it Grieving Moms Finding Hope. And it's grievingmoms.com. So this particular curriculum is for grieving moms. And a lot of times we would get the question, well, what about the dads? What about the kids? What about all these other people? But no, we niched down and made it for grieving moms. And it was great, because if you heal and get support for a grieving mom, then of course the dads are going to get help. The kids are going to get help. Again, it opens it back up. You narrow it down and then it opens it back up again. So that's one example. Another example is I talked to an author today about her children's book. And I said, okay, who's your demographic? Who's your reader? She said kids ages 4 to 8. And I thought that's a huge gap, especially in vocabulary, in developmental issues. You've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, huge difference. And I said, okay, what I'd like you to do is come up with like 4 to 5-year-olds or 5 to 6-year-olds. And then that way we can match the vocabulary to that. So those are some things to think about when you're creating a niche for your book. I have 5 ways to niche down your audience. So the first one is age. We just talked about it. That author had an age group, 4 to 8. Very, very big, too big so that she couldn't do anything about it. But we want to niche that down. And so what I want to do is, there's a difference between 4 to 8-year-olds and that whole gap and narrowing it down, and a 35 to 38-year-old. That would be okay. So it just depends on the age range. You can do baby boomers, you can do millennials, you can have groups of people. So that will work as well in the age group. The other thing you need to think about is gender. Are you hitting predominantly women, young girls, guys? What is your gender on that? Who are you hitting in that arena? If you say, hey, I'm going for the genders for everybody in that arena, then that's okay, but you're going to have to then niche down in other ways. So some of the other 5 things that we talk about, you're going to have to get really niched out in those other areas. The third thing is I want you to think about their needs and their wants. What do they need? What do they want? Just like grieving moms, we had to think, what do they need? What are some ways that we can support them through the grieving process? The fourth thing is, what are they going through? Are they going through a really hard time? Like with the grieving moms, we talked about that they are in grief and what that looks like. Maybe you've got the one that I talked to today, the author, she was writing a children's book. So one of the things she was going through with her book that she was writing, was kids that feel ostracized, that feel bullied, that don't feel like they belong. Maybe they've had a parent that has taken off. So that would be some needs and wants and some of the things that her demographic was going through. The last one is groups of people. So if you've got grieving moms, or one of our books has to do with a gal that was human trafficked, so do you have a niche group or audience of people that want to hear more about social justice issues? So that would be another thing, and that would be number 5. In this arena, we call those an avatar. So it can be demographics, it can be an avatar, it can be a niche market. All of those are very similar terms, and they all pretty much mean the same thing. And for your avatar, you can niche down to the one person. You can give him or her a name. You can say this is what they look like, these are their favorite hobbies, this is where they hang out. You can get that niched out with it. And don't be afraid of that, because then as you write the book, the vocabulary that you use, the titles that you select, and the way that the whole book looks and feels is all going to be geared towards your demographic, which is going to be fantastic, and it's going to have this cohesive nature within the book. Thanks for everything, and click the link below, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.